With V-Clan Collection being completely revealed, it's about time to take a look at what the best cards are within this set and how all these cards interact with each other. And the best way to do that is, of course, with a top 10 list. But to protect myself from devastation and to unite all commenters in this nation, I need to change my attire because right now I'm not protected. So if you disagree, I have trash taste, as you can see. Hey Cardfighters, welcome to another top 10 list. It's been a while that we did one of these videos, but usually when we go over these V-Clan Collection type of sets, I don't really want to do a set review type of video because they don't really work as too well and there are way more things that we can talk about. So I want to make a couple of videos where we're going to analyze these sets and talk about these cards. And one of them is this particular top 10 video where I'm basically going to go over what I see as the 10 best cards in context of V Premium. And then on another video, we're going to take a look at the winners and losers of all these clan reveals. Once again, in context of V Premium. And also we'll have a video where we're going to deep dive into the Hue Guardians themselves and see how good some of them are within the respective clans. Because besides them being Hue Guardians, there are also specific inherent interactions which might be overlooked by some. And I have another special video in the works, but I will keep that a secret for then. So with that said, we're gonna dive into the top 10 best cards of V-Clan Collection. But before we do that, I have a word from our sponsors. This video is sponsored by Procyon Gaming and their new All-FX dice markers. These high-end resin dice markers are perfect to indicate power increases and effects for not only Cardfight Vanguard, but also Digimon and Dragon Ball Super. The dice markers come in two flavors, the 6-sided dice with the power numbers 5 to 30k and a critical and a skill indicator on the sides. The skill indicator can be used for anything you want to remind yourself of, like a unit that needs to reverse its time leap effect at the end of the turn. The other flavor is the 8-sided dice, which has the range 2 to 9k, skipping the 5, and the over trigger icon to easily indicate the ridiculous 100 million power. The great thing about these dice is that they not only upgrade your playing field, but they're highly customizable. As you can see here, they come in 6 different flavors, from which each color represents one of the 6 nations in Overdress. You have Dragon and Crimson for Dragon Empire, Violet Twilight for Dark Stage, Royal Amethyst for Cater Sanctuary, Galactic Garnet for Brandgate, Aqua Terra for Stoichea, and Magenta Magica for Lyrical Monasterio. Of course, your boy is all about Nirvana, so I had to get me some Dragon and Crimson, and let me tell you, they look even better in person. And for those who are wondering what size they are basically the same size of the clan dice that Bushiroad gave out, so they're perfect for remote fight setup as well as for any content creator that wants to record their matches. And the great thing about these dices is that they're a fairly good price, but for all my viewers out there and community members, they're giving us even a better price because you can use the discount code VGInsider to get 10% off on the entire store. This not only includes their dices, but also some awesome playmats and any other future products that they will release. And the discount code is not only viable on their own website, but also on their Etsy store. Thank you Procyon Gaming for sponsoring this video, but now, back to the video. So for number 10, this might surprise some. I have chosen Young Pirate Noble Pinot Noir as the number 10 spot, the new grade 3 for Grand Blue. Now, I'm aware Night Rose is a much better card for Grand Blue to use, but there is something special about this particular card where I think it deserves to be in the top 10 as it brings a new playstyle to Grand Blue, which is honestly not that bad, and it gives the deck some solid offensive and defensive options. Because for this card, you need to take a look at the grade 2 as well, which gives you multi-attack plus very high shield value, which gives Grand Blue a lot of defensive and stall tactics while enforcing a lot of multi-attacks. And at the same time, the longer the game progresses, the stronger your offense and defense become. So Pinot Noir for me feels like a solid mix between offense and defense, which opens up once again the drop zone for more options. And at the same time, it gives you multiple drive checks, which is never a thing that should be dismissed. And even in the case where you don't see triggers because of its second effect, then it's free milling, which then makes your normal drive checks all the more devastating. So overall, Pinot Noir feels like a very solid Vanguard, but it's on the number 10 spot because you cannot see this card as a separate thing. You need to take a look at the grade 2 as well, and that's why it's on the lower end of the spectrum and not on the higher end of the spectrum. Now for number 9, we once again have a similar situation, because for number 9 we have the Neo-Nectar Legion grade 3, as we've got Licorice Musketeer Vera. Now, just like Pinot Noir, this is a very strong unit as a new boss unit for the Musketeer archetype within Neo-Nectar, and this does fix a lot of issues within the Neo-Nectar Musketeer archetype, because usually they are around stacking their own units, filtering more Musketeers from deck, but at some points they are going to be out of bullets because they start to keep filtering the deck, milling more cards, and at some points they don't have targets anymore. Vera is a very nice card, which allows you to put cards back into your deck, thus not actually minusing on cards within your deck count itself, which is great because it allows you to keep going if the matches are a bit longer than usual. And at the same time, this card combos very nicely with the grade 2, as we just saw with Pinot Noir, because this allows you to get a lot of trigger values, whereas Pinot Noir gives you potentially quadruple drive thanks to milling with the triggers. In this case, Vera just allows you to turn any type of trigger into front triggers, which is something very powerful, especially if you hit a critical trigger, as that's then 3 crits in one go. And together with the grade 2 Sol, you can get even more value from all of those triggers, because then you have an extra drive check potentially built in the engine itself. But the reason why I see Vera being higher than Pinot Noir is because the Musketeer engine is a bit more versatile and also a bit stronger than what Pinot Noir brings to the table to the clan. And more importantly, Vera does more on her own, and Sol just adds extra power on top of it, whereas Pinot Noir does really rely on blank to actually do the main plays of the deck. So that's why, to me, Vera is a bit higher, but just like Pinot Noir, she also relies on the secondary card to actually make her work more better, thus being more on the lower end of this list. Now that said, we finally are going to look at actual singular cards, and for number 8, we see surprisingly enough the grade 2 for Narukami. Not the boss unit, but the grade 2. The reason for that is that the grade 3 is pretty good, but I feel like it's better in premium, and we're mainly looking at V. And for V, I think the grade 2 Eradicator Spark Rain Dragon is kind of ridiculous. There's one important thing that I overlooked about this particular card when I first analyzed it in the initial Cardfight update, and that's the fact that this card in itself multi-attacks. I talked about the fact that this card can bind during the battle phase, thus activating your Rising Phoenix and enables multi-attacks. But the thing that I overlooked about this particular card is that it binds both players' front row units of the column that this card targets. So if you target the same column that this unit resides into, you basically bind both front rows and you move both back rows to the front row. So if you have an attacker behind this thing, like a grade 2 or a grade 3, it moves to the front row and now it can attack as well. So besides not only activating Rising Phoenixes, it can also move another unit in the back row to the front row to enable more attacks. That in one card is kind of ridiculous, as it in itself can achieve at least 2 multi-tags if you have one Rising Phoenix in a drop zone, which most other cards cannot do because they only rely on Rising Phoenix and nothing else. So this card is great in a scenario where your hand is cluttered with all types of grade 2s and grade 3s. Now, you can capitalize on them and just call them to be behind this unit and still get the value of it. And that, together with its built-in power increase, makes it even better because this card doesn't really need a booster to actually pressure the opponent. And that also means that if you have 2 copies of this particular unit in the same column, both will hit for sizable numbers, and one of them is gonna reload for next turn if you didn't kill them this particular turn. So this is an amazing card that will probably be a staple for Narukami in a long while, as it's just such a good versatile card that allows for field control, bind target, as well as multi-tag, everything built in for a simple 1 counterblast cost. Now moving up to the number 7 spot, we see the new Genesis Grade 3, Goddess of Good Luck Fortuna. And as I already talked about in previous videos, there is nothing good luck about this particular card, as this is the reason why it's on number 7 in my list. She can just stack the entire deck to what you want, and you don't have to stack the entire deck, but together with her other skills, you're able to soul charge enough cards that you can basically predict the flow of the entire match moving forward, which is an amazing skill to have, and it gives you full control over the game. Vanguard is a game that has an RNG element built into it thanks to the trigger system. Now that doesn't mean that Vanguard is totally an RNG game, because that's a discussion for another point, because that's card games in general. But there is an RNG factor in triggers, and Fortuna allows you to remove that RNG factor. You can decide what your top decks are, you can decide what your drive checks are, you can decide what your damages are, as well as your damage checks. That makes this card ridiculous, and it all depends on what type of pilot is using this card to determine how strong this card is. And that's the reason why it's not all too high on this list, because I don't really think it's going to be a generic mainstream card for every player out there. It's going to be for specific players that understand the value behind this card and knows how to use the card at its 100% effectiveness. But once players unlock that, this is going to be a force to be reckoned with, together with the other skills, because just for the extra reason, she can generate force markers if you hit a defensive trigger. I don't know why they put it on top of it, but it makes the card even better than it already is. So for all those reasons, it's a solid number 7 on my list. Now for number 6, we've got a very spectacular performance, as we've got the new grade 3 for Pale Moon, Bunny Beast Tamer, Teleps. And let me tell you, this card is a surprise. I was not expecting a card like this for Pale Moon, but this card is ridiculous. This card allows you to basically do the Gancelot plays, but then on a more generic instance, because you can combine it with any Beast Tamer, which can be grade 2s, and grade 3s, which then opens up either single drives or a specific grade 2 with twin drive, or you can use older VRs like Golden Beast Tamer to enable even more shenanigan plays, because all their Vanguard skills will also activate. This allows this particular instance, or this build for Pale Moon, to do all kinds of shenanigan plays and all type of variants. Most people will probably immediately think as this is going to be a bunny deck with all the bunny grade 1s, and you're going to use some of the Beast Tamers, and that's going to be your thing. But some players have already been speculating and practicing and playtesting with some very interesting engines, and some can even combine this with the Harry engine, and it allows you to loop the Harry Dragon multiple times in a single turn, as you can first ride Harry, then go into this thing, you have your stage, and then you can use the Dragon and the Pigeon to bounce multiple times, but you can use the Golden Beast Tamer as a way to get that Dragon into the soul and then bounce it back out to multi-attack with the Dragon, which then also comes with the guard restrict and the power increase that you can give to everything on the front row, thanks to this unit's passive ability with all the bunnies and Golden Beast Tamer's passive ability. So as you can see, this is a very flexible engine that surprisingly can generate a lot of different tactics, whereas at first glance it looks to be very restrictive as you need Beast Tamers and bunnies. But it's all an illusion, which is very fitting for a new boss unit for Pale Moon. So that's why this card for me is definitely number 6 spot, because it has a lot of potential, and I think we're only scratching the surface, as there's so many more possibilities that people can experiment with to truly show Teleps' true power. Now for number 5, we got my fan favorite, and it pains me to put it here, but I cannot put it any higher before looking very biased. We've got the golden boy, the best boy of Gear Chronicle, Steam Knight Caliban. I probably don't have to explain why this is in number 5 or why it should even be in the top 10. Like, this card is insane. It does so many things for Gear Chronicle. It's rewind, it's field control, it's draw power, it's counter charge with its own skill, making it basically free, and it can get you any card from the drop zone in any situation, while also enabling you to disrupt your opponent's board, which is amazing. And that's just in V. And again, we're only talking about V, but if we move a little bit to premium, it enables multi-attack. This card is insane. Like, this card enables you to do so many things, and it allows you to actually win games, which you shouldn't really be winning. If you want to see a prime example, go check out this video where I playtested the new Gear Chronicle cards against Philip with his Mega Conley cards, and in game 3, I made a situation where I would lose a game in actually a situation where I would win a game, primarily because I used this card to spin a specific card and to grab a specific card from the drop zone. If I didn't do that play, I wouldn't have won that game. So Caliban, definitely a top 5 card. It's definitely a mainstay for Gear Chronicle for a long while. I would be surprised if this card is going to be replaced anytime soon. And if it does, that means we get even better cards. So yeah, Caliban, amazing. Now for number 4, this might surprise some, but I don't want to put this card all too high, as there are some negative downsides to the card, and the card that I'm talking about is the Shadow Pedaling grade 3 Revenger Raging Form Dragon. Now we all know this card is insane. It allows you to multi-attack with your Vanguard, and if you have multiple copies of Raging Form, you can potentially attack 3 times with your Vanguard if you can set up your field, which is amazing, and you can combine it even with Illusionary Mordred Phantom, which can even achieve also another way of multi-attacking with your Blessed Arcs that can restand. So it has a lot of multi-attack potential, which makes it a very strong card, especially as it doesn't cost you Counterblast or Soul Blast, thus it's not really denied by your opponent. But that said, there is a problem with this particular card, which makes it not completely reliable, and that's the fact that you need to specifically have a grade 3 Revenger, and you can only retire Revenger cards, which means in V, you are locked out of specific cards, which is basically the main engine. You can rely on the main, but if you do, that makes this card less consistent because those mains on the board don't really work with Raging Form. And at the same time, you need to have another grade 3 in your hand. So if you do not get into your grade 3s, this card doesn't really do anything. So it's those specific situations which makes this card have some minor flaws. It's not big, but because it has those flaws, I cannot put it on number 1, whereas I think a lot of people would put this card probably on number 1 or number 2 on the list. But I think Shadow Paladin was already in a good spot, and this card is really good, but it probably wouldn't make them even better than what Luard already brings to the table. But who knows? Maybe it does, but that's for the players to figure out if that's actually the case. Now, if we move up to number 3, we've got another fan favorite card for another content creator, because, surprise, surprise, yes, I decided to put this card beyond Gear Chronicle, as here we have on number 3, Super Dimensional Robo, Daikai. Do I have to explain? It's Daikai. Like, this card is definitely a top 3 card. It's an amazing good pressure card. It's another card that just allows you to spam force markers in any situation. But more importantly, its Vanguard and Rearguard circle scale is kind of ridiculous because it makes perfect guards not really feel secure anymore. Being able to just pin a damage whenever your opponent is guarding with a perfect guard and you hit a grade 3, which is not really that unlikely to do, and you can just shoot them a damage, which can be a 6 damage, which can stack if you have multiple copies of Daikai. And as soon as if you're right on top of him, he can pop out, which makes it synergize very nicely with Ultimate Great Daihouzon, as well as anything that Black can do, as you can just go into this thing and still pressure them. And as soon as he has Inherent Critical, you can also still pressure him with those type of interactions. So yeah, Daikai is kind of scary. It's pretty good, and it, just like Caliban, only gets better if you look at Premium as well. But that's not what this list is, because then probably Caliban and Daikai will be probably one of the top cards in this list. But Daikai is already at 3rd spot, so who knows? Now for number 2, as well as number 1, this might be a bit controversial, but again, I want to refer to this. But the reason why I put these particular 2 cards on the top is because what type of impact these cards bring to their clans. As they are not only pretty good, but they bring something bad to pretty good status. And that makes these cards actually way better than something like Raging for Dragon or Daikai, which were already in good clans. Same as with Caliban. They were in good clans that just got a good card again, or a strong card, but it doesn't make the clan even stronger than already were. The cards that I'm referring to, or at least one of those cards I'm referring to on the number 2 spot, is Evil Armor General Jaratha. Now, I know some of you might think, dude, it's Mega Conley. How can this be the number 2 best card in V Clan Collection? The thing about this card is that it is actually a good Mega Conley card. Like, it stuns, it hand rips, it negates abilities, and it just forces your opponent in a very awkward situation. And that's just this card without any support. Its first effect is ridiculous, and the fact that it's not grade restricted and you can do this while your opponent is still at grade 2 is even more nuts. Like, it starts ripping cards out of your opponent's hand like the turn it hits the field, and just for 1 counterblast, yes, you need to put a unit into the soul, but the thing is, Mega Conley can abuse the soul for all types of very strong effects. They have this multi-tech enabler from the drop zone, which costs soul. They can even utilize the cradle mechanic on top of this thing, and they have the generic stun and lock shenanigans they have access to that makes this card even more obnoxious. Again, if you aren't aware how obnoxious this card can be, check out this video with me fighting against Philip again, but then on his channel for game 1, where you can see the annoying things that I need to jump, which types of hoops I need to jump through to actually not die to this card. And that was playing Gear Chronicle, which is seen as a tier 1 deck in V. Against Mega Conley. Again, Mega Conley does this. So this is the reason for me that Jaratha is an instant number 2 on this list. It makes the clan actually feel threatening again, and it's such a strong boss unit, and with so little actual dedicated support, it's kind of scary to think about that if Bushro decides to actually make more dedicated support within this playstyle. Yeah, Jaratha could be a real force to reckon with and easily become one of the best tier 1 decks in my honest opinion. But it's still number 2. We still have one more card to talk about, and this once again might be a controversial one. Because for the number 1 spot in my honest list as one of the strongest cards within the clan collection set, it's the grade 3 for Nubatama, Sword Saint of Invincibility, Daihouzon. Yeah. This card, to me, is probably the best card in this set. And probably a lot of people are now instantly disliking or cutting out the video. But hear me out on this one. The fact that this card, for a Counter Blast and a Soul Blast, can start swinging with insane power, triple drives, and critical, makes this cost almost feel negligible. Because you start swinging for a 27 double critical triple drive Vanguard every single turn for almost no cost. Keep in mind, Nubatama has a lot of resource engines which can allow you to generate the soul and the counter blast you're going to need. So that's almost a no issue. But it's its second effect which makes this card ridiculous, because this card negates or counterplays any type of multi-attack strategy. Because the effect doesn't specify that it needs to be called from hand. If any unit is placed onto the rigger choke, as long as it's a normal unit, so no triggers, but usually don't want to call triggers when you're doing your plays, you're forcing your opponent to discard cards. Yes, if they have 3 cards or less in hand, then they don't have to discard. But the moment they have 3 cards or less in hand, if you then start swinging with a Vanguard that comes with triple drive, double critical, and 27k, and you have your rear guards on top of that, and don't forget Nubatama have guard restrict options, you're gonna win the game. And the thing about that whole discard thing is that it doesn't have to do anything to force your opponent to discard. If they want to play the game, you're forcing them to discard. And a lot of decks are going to hurt from this big time. Any deck that multi-attacks or does some type of superior call shenanigans is gonna feel this. Nitro is gonna hurt from this. Gear Chronicle can hurt from this. Royal Paladin in general is gonna hurt from this. Neo Nectar with all the superior calling is gonna hurt from this. The list goes on and on and on with any type of card deck that does something. And even decks that don't superior call or don't call things, Nubatama has all the discard bounce effects for days that then force your opponent to still call new cards to the field if they even want to do anything. Which makes this card, in my honest opinion, a force to reckon with, and it's going to be a very powerful card in the right hands. It's going to be a difficult card to pilot, but unlike other cards within this set, they definitely have a lot more potential. Like, I know Reiji is a meme, and it's going to be super hard to actually make that card viable, but unlike Reiji, Daihouzon on its own already actually works. And every other card that you're going to put besides him is gonna make Daihouzon even more powerful. So that's why, for me personally, Daihouzon is arguably the number 1 card in the entire set. It's a ridiculous card which becomes only more powerful with more and more support. And that's the top 10 list that I have for V Clan Collection. Now, as already explained, you might disagree with this list as I have different criteria and wanted to put certain other cards that don't really see a lot of discussion around, like the Mega Conley one and the Nubatama card. I feel like these 2 cards are a bit overlooked by a lot of players. But I experienced these cards firsthand, and these cards are kind of ridiculous if they are in the right hands. Now, of course, both these cards can be played around, but the fact that the player that's playing against them needs to jump through so many awkward hoops makes them very devastating and very threatening if the other player actually piloting them knows how to navigate and counteract those particular hoops themselves, and makes it even more devastating or more annoying for your opponent to deal with it. But that said, I'm also very curious what you guys think are the best cards within V Clan Collection. I know the sets aren't up to par with most other V Clan support or sets themselves, but I'm very curious what your thoughts about these cards are, as there are a lot of very interesting cards within these 2 sets, and also a very awesome, powerful effect and combination being possible made by these new cards. So let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But with that said, I've been Mr. Time Leap, and I'll see you guys in the next one!